Authorities are asking for the public's help tonight, looking for an inmate who escaped from a Texoma prison. Denison police say they have a possible suspect in a stabbing that happened early yesterday morning. Good evening and welcome to Fox News at 9. I'm Heather Sahr. First on Fox. The governor of Oklahoma made a stop in Ardmore today, signing a bill that could potentially bring in millions of tourist dollars to Lake Murray State Park. Turning to weather now, as we have been promising all week, most of Texoma enjoyed a cool Friday in the 70s. Let's head over to Tom Hale for a look at the maps. Tom. Martin Luther King Drive in Denison was shut down for about half an hour this afternoon after a two-vehicle accident. Welcome to Fox News, the region's only local news at 5:30. I'm Heather Sahr. A pipeline carrying oil from Canada to refineries across the U.S. is making its way to Texoma. Fannin County has a new way to notify residents during times of emergency. A grieving father refuses to back down 2 years after both his daughters were murdered at a home just outside of Sherman. Larry Ballou holds a memorial for his daughters Misty and Cassandra Ballou 2 years to the day after their gruesome murder. Ballou says even though 2 years have passed, the pain is still fresh.
I'm not letting this die. This was the only two kids I had on the face of this earth. So I'm not letting it die.
Cassandra was also pregnant at the time of her murder. Another man, Brian Ritchie, was also killed in that same home 2 years ago before it was set on fire. If you have any information on the quadruple homicide, please contact the Grayson County Sheriff's Office at the number on your screen. Troopers say they're currently looking for a vehicle that may have been involved in an accident last night that killed an Ada High School football player. 18-year-old Cody Johnson was riding his motorcycle around 7:30 on Highway 3 West when troopers say he may have hit a stock trailer being pulled by a pickup. They're currently searching for the driver of that pickup. OHP Captain Ronnie Hampton says they don't believe the truck driver realized he was involved in the crash.
Right now, we have a list of people that were at the stockyards, and we have about 6 troopers assigned to this thing in about 8 different counties.
Ada's athletic director Mike Anderson says Johnson was more than just a starting football player. He was a great person and friend. We'll hear from Anderson coming up on Fox News at 9. Israel is preparing for a possible ground invasion of Gaza after Palestinian militants launched hundreds of rockets into Israel today. The rockets targeting Tel Aviv, killing 3 people and setting off air raid sirens as Israelis ran for cover. The battle is now escalating a day after Israeli forces assassinated the chief of Hamas. The militant group says 15 Palestinians were killed in that attack and more than 100 injured. Israeli commanders say they targeted the chief as payback for the rockets fired upon Israeli towns.
My government has instructed the Israeli Defense Forces to conduct surgical strikes against the terrorist infrastructure in Gaza. And this is why Israel will continue to take whatever action is necessary to defend our people.
Dozens of Israeli tanks and soldiers are now moving into place near the Gaza border. White House officials say the U.S. supports Israel's right to defend itself and said Hamas needs to stop its attacks on Israel for tensions to ease. A series of hearings are underway looking into the attack on the U.S. consulate of Benghazi. Fox's Craig Boswell has more from Washington.
The Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, along with the acting CIA director and others, head behind closed doors to answer questions about the deadly attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi.
The election's over. Now we've got to get to the bottom, get to the facts.
Tensions were evident in one open hearing earlier in the day, though it seemed more of a venting session than a search for answers.
What is clear is that this administration, including the president himself, has intentionally misinformed, read that, lied to the American people in the aftermath of this tragedy.
On Wednesday, President Obama sounded off on select Senate Republicans on their criticisms of the administration's handling of the attack.
If Senator McCain and Senator Graham and others want to go after somebody, they should go after me.
Some members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee say lawmakers share the blame for embassy security issues after denying millions of dollars for upgrades.
And then you have the audacity to come here and say, why wasn't the protection of these people provided for? And the answer is because you damn didn't provide it.
The main event comes tomorrow when now former CIA Director David Petraeus testifies in a closed session. And there are even more high-profile briefings to come.
Secretary Clinton has confirmed with us that she will be appearing before us.
Clinton's testimony may come in December after an internal State Department review is complete. General Petraeus' appearance is set for Friday morning before the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. In Washington, Craig Boswell, Fox News.
President Obama is touring New York today to see some of the hardest hit areas still struggling to recover from Sandy. The storm swept through the Northeast, killing more than 100 people and leaving millions without power. A lot of work remains. Thousands are still without power, tens of thousands are homeless, and many more are trying to pick up the pieces.
So there's a lot of short-term, immediate stuff that has to be dealt with, and we are going to make sure that we stay here as long as people need that immediate help. That's FEMA's primary task.
Mr. Obama will take an aerial tour of parts of Queens and Brooklyn before meeting with families on Staten Island. The U.S. Justice Department reached a record settlement with BP and victims of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The company will pay $4.5 billion in government penalties associated with the 2010 explosion on board the Deepwater Horizon oil rig. Attorney General Eric Holder was in New Orleans to make the announcement.
BP has agreed to plead guilty to all 14 criminal charges, including responsibility for the deaths of 11 people and the events that led to an unprecedented environmental catastrophe.
BP CEO Bob Dudley also issued a statement saying it apologizes for their role, and today's resolution shows they accept responsibility for their actions. Let's head over to the Weather Center now and take a peek at today's temperatures with meteorologist Tom Hale.
Well, Heather, we had very little change from yesterday, actually. Temperatures right around the 60-degree mark and morning low temperatures in the 30s, well above the records of 19 degrees or below the high temperature records of 85. And right now outside, we've already fallen 5 to 6 degrees. We're down into the 50s and we're headed back down toward the 30s. And it doesn't look like a lot of change in our weather for the next several days. Also, I've got a turkey in our forecast coming up.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom. Texas Instruments, Inc. will eliminate about 1,700 jobs as it trims spending in its wireless business. The Dallas-based chip maker made the announcement yesterday. The cuts will reduce TI staff positions by almost 5%. Texas Instruments expects the job cuts and other changes to save about $450 million per year by the end of 2013. Most will come in the current quarter. The company is shifting the focus from its wireless investments to industrial and automotive customers and away from smartphones and tablets. TI had nearly 35,000 employees at the end of 2011. A representative from the TI headquarters in Dallas says she doesn't know whether the Sherman plant will be affected by the layoffs. Job-seeking veterans showed up to the first annual Red, White, and You job fair today. It's a way for struggling veterans to get back on their feet. Stephen Powell joins us in the studio with the story. Stephen.
Heather, it's helping people like Richard Allen Stivers. He struggled after retiring from the military, but eventually started his own business. Now he's just trying to start over. Richard Allen Stivers retired from the Marine Corps in the 80s. He bumped around from city to city working odd jobs before finally settling in and opening his own business. But 13 years later, his once thriving business collapsed in the recession. So he moved to South May, Texas to start over.
You know, it's embarrassing to say because I'm not used to having to back up and restart.
Like many veterans, he showed up Thursday looking for a steady career. Again,
I'm 50 years old and I need to really settle down and get into a company that's going to help me in my years later on in life.
The Denison Job Fair is one of 20 happening across the state. Many businesses, including KXII, were on hand to talk to job seekers. Bob Roden with Workforce Solutions Texoma says it's a way to combat the state's high veteran unemployment.
It gives an opportunity for those veterans to stand across the table from people who are looking for the skills they have, for the training they have, the education they have, so that they can actually talk to that person who's making a hiring decision.
The Texas Veterans Commission says veterans often struggle when explaining to employers how their military experience will translate into a civilian job.
We are in the process of educating the vets on how to convert those skills over to civilian occupations.
Veterans Employment Representative Tony Hall says he plays matchmaker, pairing a job-seeking veteran with an employer who's looking to hire. Stivers is optimistic about the day.
I just got here a little while ago, but I'm already filling out an application, so I guess that's good news.
More than 50 veterans showed up to today's fair. Live in the studio, Stephen Powell, News 12.
One Sherman neighborhood has seen an increase in car burglaries. Sherman police say early yesterday morning they were called to the 1500 block of Creekside Drive where someone had seen a female breaking into a vehicle. Sherman police and Texas DPS worked together in stopping and identifying 17-year-old Taylor Paige Satterfield. Satterfield was charged with 1 burglary of a home and 12 counts of burglary to a vehicle in the Pebblebrook neighborhood. Sherman police say all the vehicles that were burglarized were left unlocked. Construction began today on a project to widen Highway 82 between Bells and Bonham. TxDOT is spending $26 million to double 82 to 4 lanes. TxDOT says the expansion is needed because traffic is increasing on the highway. Construction should last until May of 2015 at the very latest, but shouldn't cause major delays to drivers. They believe the increased space should decrease the severity of accidents. Just ahead on Fox News at 5:30, find out why Twinkies may become a thing of the past. Fox News at 5:30, we'll be right back.